Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 82. And today we're going to do kind of a new segment on the show where we take a look at some underutilized or underappreciated or just outright poor profiles in some cases and see why that is. Do a little bit of a dive to see what they're about, how they work, um, why don't they work the way they're supposed to, and then kind of talk about how you can try and make them work. And then we'll wrap things up with a little bit of our opinions on if we had the opportunity to design their profiles, what might that look like? And that's going to be the Jayth Cutthroats today. We recently had a poll asking for some of the units that you all like the least, and Jayth came out on top by a fair margin. And so that's going to be the topic of tonight's episode. But before we get into all that, we'd like to thank Mo Games. They're the sponsor of Metachemistry, and Mythic's Online Emporium is an online retailer of Infinity that you can find at mo-games.com. All of our patrons get a 10% discount code that you can use on all your purchases there. And every month, members of our Discord, whether you're a patron or not, are entered into our monthly raffle to win a $40 coupon code. Because what's better than games? Mo Games. And tonight we have Azoka, Ian, and myself. So, how has Infinity or your other gaming endeavors been treating you recently? Ian?
So we've been doing more exploration of Varuna. That's been going fairly well. Yeah, mostly just crushing people with it. It's kind of brutal. Outside of that, we just finished up our current Blood Bowl league. We did a Stunty Cup with only the tier 3 teams available. So that was just lots of chaos and ridiculousness. And yeah, maybe doing some explorations of Warhammer: The Old World. The pre-order for the rulebook went up just recently, and I still have my old Warhammer Fantasy armies sitting around. So give that a shot at some point. See how it goes.
Yeah, something, I'm interested to see what rules look like before moving on anything, but
Yeah, so
I
like I
definitely
already
have some stuff.
own stuff, so I'm like,
Mhm.
cool, let's get the rulebook and see what it looks like. Not gonna get anything past that, really.
Yeah. I think that'd be pretty fun to try it out and see how it goes.
I mean, I liked Warhammer Fantasy 8th Edition. I played from like 5th on, but 8th Edition I thought was really cool. Really had a lot of cool options, and I enjoyed that a significant amount. So
Nice.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, what about you, Azoka?
I've been playing a lot of Morats to get prepped for Las Vegas, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So I am feeling pretty good about it. So I'm very excited to get out there. The tournament was very curious because there's exclusion zones / deployment troubles in every single mission. So it behooves you to play a faction that marches out of your deployment zone. So I'm excited to play Morats, who I think do that really well.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of good tools for that. Don't that's where they're going to start anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Outside of that, I've really just been playing Infinity, which has been a good time.
Yeah, definitely, and largely the same for me. I keep kind of jumping around a little bit here and there. I played a little bit more Shizvasti, um, for the last couple pickup game nights.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I said, I don't imagine they're going to hold my attention terribly long, but I don't mind having them as an option. So there's that, and then I've been playing more Tunguska, and been enjoying the Krieger update for them. That's been actually pretty helpful because they didn't really have any sort of equivalent to Zellenkriegers up until that point. So that's kind of nice. Little extra
Good
tool
too.
in the tool bag. Yeah, they're pretty solid. I mean, I'm glad that they're not like many mercenaries where they're available just in every faction. That helps. And most of the factions they're in, they're actually borderline redundant in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. But I like them in Tunguska, so there's that.
Oh, weird. You're into the mercenary troops all of a sudden. How did that
Well,
happen?
with my Space Mafia, yeah. They
Yeah, it makes
contract.
more sense theme-wise, yes.
I don't mind it there. They'll hire pit fighters. That's what the whole book was about. But yeah, my OSS is not going to be hiring out pit fighters. Not that they can, but I don't like them there very often. But
Can they be
anyway.
taken in vanilla, Aleph?
Kriegers? No.
Okay.
No, they're very
But like
limited.
Yeah, I just wanted to be
OSS
sure.
OSS can bring like bounty hunters and motorized bounty hunters and stuff like that. CSUs. CSUs, I feel, are a little more up that alley. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Jayth. Jayth Cutthroats.
Boo. I'm just kidding.
Boo those profiles. Yeah, they are a little rough around the edges. So the Jayth Cutthroats, a little brief primer on them. They're essentially some Shizvasti that went to the Jayth system, and Shizvasti have some means of genetically modifying themselves, and so they adapted to the new environment, and so they were much stronger because of the very powerful
Gravity, right?
yeah, the powerful gravity of the planet, and also it was very rich in mineral resources, so the Jayth were initially miners. They ended up being enslaved by an alien race, and then they fought this guerrilla war under this regime and got their way back to the rest of the Shizvasti with the arrival of the support and colonial liaison fleet of the Shizvasti Continuum. And then they were pretty much used for like boarding actions and the like, and they're known for, kind of marching to the beat of their own drum, I guess, where they're not very good at folding into military structure and are just brutal close quarters combatants. So then we look at the actual profile. And Ian, do you want to kind of talk about Cutthroat profile a little bit and kind of paint a picture for those unfamiliar?
Sure. So the Jayth Cutthroats are much more of a CC-oriented unit. They have a high CC of 23. Their ballistic skill is average at 12. Solid fizz, everything like that. Their downfalls that they have no armor, but they do have high BTS of 6. And their skills are looking at, martial arts 3, mimetism -6, and natural born warrior. So they also have MSV 1. So they are pretty adept at not being hit and being able to do the hitting. But if they take a hit, they're not going to be happy. And then they have various loadouts with different things that generally tend to be more close range weapons.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're definitely CC units primarily, but then they kind of tack on this gear that indicates more of a gunfighter sort of role, but then they don't necessarily have the guns to do that with. Like the best gunfighting weapon they have, the only SWC option is a Red Fury. And otherwise they're largely shotguns, submachine guns, or even just chain rifles on the most basic case. So yeah, there's a little bit of conflict there, and I think that's where we see some of the problems, where they are kind of torn in multiple directions, and I think that's kind of what happens with many maligned profiles, is that they try to do too many things at once, and so there's kind of this perception that you can't ever get your real value out of that unit because, are you really going to have the opportunity to do all of the things that the trooper is capable of doing? And there is some merit to that. But there's also something to be said for the flexibility of a unit and not necessarily being the perfect tool for every situation, but being able to be a backup in case your primary tool is no longer available. But for Jayth, I think that actually, let's back that up a little bit. So, Azoka, what are some other reasons you feel like Jayth are kind of one of those profiles that people kind of turn up their noses at? Things that just don't really make it into lists very often and that are generally not considered very powerful or very useful.
Yeah. It's for me, I think it's a lot of the faction that they're in, right? Like it's it's that in combination with their price point, how fragile they are, and their availability in factions. So Shaz doesn't necessarily build with Jayth's period. Like there isn't a good spot to put this expensive trooper in there when you could just field other camo troopers that they have plenty of availability and options for. Whenever I see Shaz players play, I don't see a lot of link teams. When I do, they're often like character links or Nox trooper links, those sort of things, or like a Guilo link.
Mhm.
But I don't see anybody wanting to shell out the amount of points that you need to put in the Jayths. And that's probably because even though they have a specialist operative profile, they don't really cover enough bases well enough to be reliable for the point costs, right? Don't get me wrong, Mimetism 6 is a hell of a drug, right? I mean, look at Steel Phalanx, they do just fine with it. But I don't think that's enough on their trooper, on their profile. The EM weapons are really cool, and that's probably something that people want to take them for because you don't have a huge access of that in Shazvasti. But yeah, I just think that the price and fragility of it is just way too much. And in vanilla, they don't do enough to make them worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the big issue that you see with these and the difference between them and say, Phalanx close quarters combatants, like you mentioned, is that they primarily want to fight in template range, but cannot suffer a template, and it feels extra punishing when not only are they bad at taking the hit, it's circumventing this Mimetism 6 that you're paying for. And
Right.
with Phalanx, a lot of those tend to be multi-wound or near multi-wound troops, so that you don't really have the same drop in durability as you do here, and they're not significantly cheaper. Like if you compare, say, the Red Fury Jayth to
Oh man.
Eudoros for 3 more points. Now, Eudoros is probably slightly overtuned, but
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like there's a pretty stark difference, right? So
Yeah,
there's
being completely gutted by templates is really rough for them when the rest of your faction gets gutted by templates.
Right. Yeah. So I think that makes it pretty difficult. I don't know. Ian, any other notes on that front in terms of why you feel like these don't really get a lot of table time or why they're not particularly beloved profiles?
Well, I think it's just that there's too much competition for what they do. Like, we don't need in Shazvasti a ton of CC models, especially ones they're going to have to slog across the board when you have speculos. You can literally just start there and then go kill something far more effectively for, in many cases, a cheaper cost.
Yeah, and less orders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
When
Taigas get across the board faster, and they have Berserk.
or Calibans are typically also specialists and can circumvent things with camouflage, and probably most importantly for the Jayth problem, they can gain wounds. Like,
Yeah.
they can hit stuff and actually top off and get, become a 3 wound model potentially, and can heal themselves throughout the fight if they get the opportunity, whereas Jayth is just kind of out of luck.
Yeah, the big thing that's super weird for me is that I don't necessarily know the lore behind Calibans as much, but from the lore that we discussed in the Jayths, they're supposed to be durable, high gravity like troopers, and like in miners and stuff. So maybe have high quality armor or multi wound or dog it or something like that, but they have none of it. And then you look at the Calibans, who are more. They're tougher than the Jayths. They have one more point of armor. They're the same pH. Can gain wounds, which is albeit a different way of gaining wounds. But yeah,
Right. Yeah. So I think that's all pretty accurate in terms of why Jayth just don't see a ton of play and why they aren't just very well liked. Like I've been playing Shizvasti and I almost brought them in an objective room mission. Specifically the cheapest one, the 25.1 that has double chain rifles, EM mines, and EM grenades.
yeah.
Because like that's pretty useful, I think.
Mhm.
Because one, it is the cheapest that you can get at 25 points, which is still substantial for what is effectively a warband trooper. But there's not a lot. There's very little smoke in Shizvasti. You only have it on the Speculo. And so the MSV1 is a little bit harder to take advantage of. And if you're firing templates, you're not doing it. You don't care about mimetism already, things like that. But yeah, they are tough to bring.
You're so right. If you have MSV1 and you're firing templates, but you can't gain advantage of smoke, your MSV1 doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's like I could throw an EM grenade if it's like maybe it's a high mimetism, a mimetism 3 or mimetism 6 heavy infantry or tag, and maybe I just really want to hit him with that EM grenade instead. But you're going to spec fire, in which case you're back to not caring about visual mods.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I think that it's also worth bringing up in this discussion is the leader of the Cutthroats, the Tunnel Crumbler, Sargosh.
Bum, bum, bum.
And he sounds really imposing. He looks really imposing. And then you look at his profile and like everything looks good until you get to the points cost. Like he's got high CC. He shares a lot of the same abilities as regular Jayths, but he picks up Specialist Operative, which is pretty notable. He picks up number 2, which can be of situational benefit. And he grabs Stealth, which those are all cool items to have. And then he's got actual weapons with the multi-rifle, light shotgun, and decharges. But he's 37 points.
Mm-hmm.
That is just a pile of points for a short-range unit like this that also wants to be on top of people and close combating them to death. And no way to get additional wounds from Protheon, no extra fallback in terms of an additional wound or no wooden cap or dog it and the like. It is just almost 40 points for a multi-rifle with MIM 6 and MSV1 and a good close quarters combatant.
Hey, he's got 1 point of armor. His survivability went up.
He does
Yeah.
pick up armor. He also has immunity shock. There you go. There's your durability.
That'll do it for all those famous Shizvasti doctors.
And he's got courage.
He does have courage, where the other ones don't. That's
Oh,
pretty
yeah, yeah.
interesting.
Good call. Yeah, no courage.
I think, like, for him, it's a little bit better because his mimetism makes a little bit more sense because he's
Sure.
got a gun, like a multi-rifle, which is not a Spitfire or anything, but it's still better than your trash weapon, literally.
Yeah, the chain rifles. Yeah, or even the submachine guns, right? Because at least you can utilize a multi-rifle outside of template range.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something. And I think that there's value there. But yeah. So there's some problems with the Cutthroats and the character Cutthroat. But what do we do with them now? What can they be used at? Like if we're going to let's say we're going to cook up, for our purposes, we'll say it's a Shizvasti list, because it's really hard in vanilla. But let's say we're trying to cook up a Shizvasti list, and we want to bring some Jayth. Not that we need to like max out the availability 4 of them or anything, but just that we want to have some Shizvasti. What sort of jobs do you see them doing? What are some ways that you feel like they might benefit a list? I kind of touched on one first already in terms of the basic one. A couple of those with ground control I think are good because being able to plant EM mines around an objective room is really nice. They're hard to shoot at, which is nice. Their dodge is pretty decent at 13. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. And they're good in CC. And a lot of times, you see really powerful CC units in the room, and their Natural Born Warrior combined with martial arts really goes a long way to fight other CC combatants. So, like, sitting in a confined space like that, I mean, yes, you can still have somebody lob a grenade onto you, or somebody just run in the room and a 5-point warband wipes out both of them or something. But
Trade up, baby.
those are some things that kind of jump to mind in terms of, okay, well, maybe some area denial can work specifically with the basic Jayth.
Mhm.
But what about you guys?
My standout profile is actually the Pit Patrol
Sure.
because it's
I agree.
submachine gun, chain rifle, EM grenades, DA close combat weapon, but it's paired with a Taiga creature as a synchronized unit. And the Taiga, unlike say like the is it the Gaki or the Preda that's with the Morats with the Osnat, it doesn't have a gun, but since the Jayth is already keyed up for close combat, this just enhances that close combat ability by providing extra burst depending on which profile you want to go with. The Taiga still does have Berserk, so it can utilize that if you make it the one throwing the active attack. But yeah, it is pretty solid choice if you need to go in and clear a room, because you do still have a template. You can get that extra burst going, in CC, and the model actually, that's one of the cooler looking models in the pack.
Yeah,
not that they're
those
not
models
all
are good.
really cool. That's the thing. That sad thing is that all of the Jayth models are pretty awesome, and this one I think is a little extra awesome because he's got his alien puppy dog with him.
Yep. And a very unique taiga in that the Pit Patrol taigas have shock mines.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
that
Regulars
weird?
don't. Just kind of neat,
Mhm.
That's cool.
I definitely like them having shot mines.
Yeah, so again, I agree. Like, you can kind of play those offensively a little bit, which is fun.
Actually, there you go. Like, if you struggle against mines, just use a Pit Patrol, little Taiga. Go up there, dodge the mine. It's got 6. They do not retain 6th sense, but it has dodge +3, so it's got a good chance of taking care of that mine for you.
Yep, it put on blinders and got mines.
Yeah. I think for me, if I wanted to use the Jayths, there's a couple of ways that I would probably look at doing it. I mean, I really like your idea of having area control and denial, but I would want to try and take advantage of the mimetism and MSV1 that you're just paying so expensive for.
Mhm.
And in doing that, I would be sad and use the Red Fury in a Link team. So I'd probably do something with, a specialist, either the hacker Victor or and Ada Swanson or something like that, to kind of balance out the point cost of that Red Fury costing 38 points. But then at least you do get to take advantage of that mimetism.
Yeah, I'm sad though that with Jayth being AVA 4 and Sargosh being a Jayth character that counts as a Jayth and fire teams, that they're limited to a Harris.
Yeah,
like let them have the core. Nobody's gonna take it anyway.
I know.
But I would run it at least once just for the lulz. But
I mean, if they gave you the option of a pure core team, that could be kind of scary, right? Like,
but limited to Duo and Harris, it's a little sad when they have the AVA in the list to be able to pull off a core.
Yeah, I know.
But you're paying like light heavy infantry prices for this core. This is like 150 some odd point core.
I know.
Nobody's going to take it.
Easy to kill.
But I would do it once because I think it would be funny.
I mean, maybe that.
I mean, yeah. I have not seen a pain train work that well at that price, and they have the benefit of wounds.
Oh,
right. So
you haven't seen my orc core.
Yeah, I have not played against that yet.
So a theoretical Jayth core here. I'm thinking, okay, Red Fury, pure Jayth core, a Red Fury, Vulcan shotgun specialist, 2 of the cheap chain rifle ones, and Sargosh is 160 points.
That's so expensive.
That's wildly expensive.
Do it.
I mean, and
you don't even get a good gun.
I know.
Yeah, you've got a Red Fury
and a multi
as your main delivery weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, Disperse 5 with MIM 6, that's pretty cool. MSP 1, but
BS 15
Yeah, true. Yeah. BS 6 15. Which I mean, like, yeah, no.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's entertaining enough that I would want to try it at least once.
Yeah,
fair.
I also think like it because this does happen in certain scenarios. If I knew what person I was playing against and what faction they were playing, like ahead of time, I would probably think about bringing Jayth's for the EM value. Right, like if I know that someone's going to be playing IA and they're going to bring tons of heavy infantry with not a whole lot of like cheap warbands and stuff like that, I would totally bring Jayth's, right? Because like even if they roll up to you and they're like, "I'm going to template you," you could just be like, "Well, I'm going to throw an EM grenade at you." So win-win.
Right. Yeah. Something where you can kind of more or less trade effectively, or factions that just don't tend to run a lot of templates. Like everyone has templates in N4 because of the shotgun change. But
some have less access to them or don't take them as much. Like I don't think military orders outside of Teutonic Knights plays many templates.
Sure. And yeah, I think that's definitely fairly common. Like I could see Neoterra being sort of similar, like other than like Auxilia and Peacemakers, like where they're just less common in general.
Yep, I agree.
So, something like that maybe, but yeah, so maybe those are some ways that we can find to get Jayth on the table as they currently stand. But this one, I kind of want to open up discussion a little bit more freeform here and talk about what might you change if we had somebody from CB say, "Hey, we need someone to take a look at Jayth. Why don't you get your eyes on it? Let us know what you think. What would you change? What would that be?" And I'll go first, just kind of get the ball rolling. And there's a couple things that stood out to me when going through some of their fluff and looking a little bit at their battlefield role. One of the things being how durable they're supposed to be and how strong they're supposed to be because of their adaptations to the Jayth 1. So I think bumping the fizz up to 14 and upping their armor to 2 from 0. You could even drop their... Now, and just to take a moment back, we're trying to make changes that would make them appealing and usable in their armies without just blatantly being overpowered. So that's the goal here. Anyway,
and keep it in theme, right?
And in theme, ideally, right? like that's why we want to take a look at what the unit does and take a look at their fluff and try and stick within those bounds as kind of what they're intended to be. So I think that there's a lot of talk about them not following the chain of command when they return to the Shizvasti, and I think being irregular and frenzy would be interesting for them and helpful ways to kind of drop their cost back down, and making them just warbands instead of light infantry. Not that distinction is incredibly relevant, but it fits their role better, I think. So I think their BTS could drop to 3 as well to kind of uh, tamper them back just a little bit. And I would also lower their mimetism and martial arts to mimetism -3 and martial arts probably level 2. But they're also like tunnel fighters, and I think that giving them forward deployment +4 or maybe even +8 inches would be really interesting to represent
Mhm.
that. And another tick to their durability, I would say either dogged or regeneration would be really cool on them, especially with the fizz bump. And then I would say to you that with some of those things getting knocked down a little bit, I would say that I would price them roughly about 10 points less. So the
Yeah.
base one would be 15 points for a double chain rifle, EM grenades, EM mines, forward deploying irregular frenzy trooper with with the other skills. I think keeping the multispectral visor, I was initially thinking of maybe dropping that, but part of that is like, okay, well, they're tunnel fighters. That's how they've adapted to sea
Yeah.
and the tunnels and their
Yeah.
boarding
Keep
actions and
it.
the like. I think leaving that there makes sense. Um, but at 15 points for an irregular trooper is not too bad, I think. And so that would knock the other ones down. So even the most expensive one would be uh, 28 points roughly. So I feel like that would be pretty reasonable. And then Sargosh, I think Sargosh should should get no wound incapacitation. I think he needs it for his
Yeah.
cost. But even so, let's say we shave 10 points off of Sargosh and he's 27 points. Um, and then I would probably have a similar rule to like Morlocks or Hungry teams where if they're in a fire team, they're treated as regular.
Yeah. I think that could have
and
value.
and leave them that way. So if you do want to kind of stack up and bring several of them, okay, then you can have them as regular, but it doesn't strike me as a profile you're necessarily going to want a bunch of.
Mhm.
But those are some things that kind of jump out to me that I think would be of interest, and I feel like they would be pretty useful at that point. Like it feels a lot better to trade 2 templates from a 15-point model than a 25-point model.
Yeah.
And hopefully some of those things, like part of it is delivery, right? Them not being able to get there. Well, with some forward deployment, maybe that would help them be in that range to kind of start working on the enemy before just getting dropped on the way there. So yeah. So what are your guys' thoughts on some of those changes, or what things might you change instead, or in addition, maybe?
I like a lot of kind of what you said. The We definitely need to keep it in theme, and keeping MSV is good. I think you could probably drop Mim 6 to Mim 3 for those points. I personally don't really care for irregular and frenzy. I think that's such a hard hit on those troopers, but I can see your value like in having that to give them the cost decrease that they need. But because I look at like an irregular frenzy Red Fury Jayth, and I'm just like, what is this guy gonna do? He's gonna go run around. But I mean, if he's got armor 2 or 3 or something, I think there might be a little value. We definitely want to see some level of increase in armor, just like you were saying, because we want them to be durable, and that just coming from their backstory. I would also like to see, since they're miners, maybe you could put some sort of AP on their weaponry. Like an AP Red Fury would be unique and cool, because it keeps them to their short range weapons, right? Because they're fighting in tunnels, so you don't want to give them a heavy machine gun or a sniper rifle or anything crazy like that. And we have never seen an AP Red Fury so far.
The latest update in a long line of updates on the Chuxa Long Arms. They got AP on their Red Fury
nice.
in the most recent update.
Spread out the love.
Right?
I think that if they got that would be really, like, that would really set them apart as unique, and kind of like make it worthwhile spending those points to take that profile. Because like, if you take a Red Fury, you ain't gonna punch through armor, even if you're burst 5. It's possible, but not a very likely chance. Like, you're not going to rely on that when you could rely on a Speculo killer, right, or something of the sort.
Right.
That's really like a lot of the changes that I would look at making. Maybe drop martial arts from level 3 to level 2 and give them 1 bump of fizz.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah, I
necessarily
agree.
want to have them hit harder, but they are more durable, or like they've adapted to a higher gravity place, so they should have a really high fizz.
Mhm.
Which 13
Yeah,
is still high, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that I would call out as well. Lower the martial arts so they don't do as much damage there, and then bump the fizz to compensate, because then they're better at dodging. And again, I kind of like the idea of regeneration on them potentially.
Yep.
I feel like that's a fun way to kind of keep them in the fight. So yeah, I think so too. What about you, Ian? Anything that kind of jumps out at you, or things that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I actually like the idea of having a single profile, like, give it whatever weapon loadout, it doesn't matter, but a single profile of theirs with combat jump to represent the tunneling into the area.
That would be awesome.
Without giving like a new rule to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Maybe something like parachutist.
Well, parachutist walks in. I like combat jump because it's like they're tunneling up from underneath. But they said it's not perfect, but it's using an existing rule to do that.
Well, maybe infiltration.
Yeah.
Because then you could potentially, like, okay, if you want to push deeper into enemy territory, you can make a roll on a Fizz 11 with our proposed update.
I mean, that's fine. I just also like the
That could
idea of
be
them being able to
interesting.
come in mid-game, like,
Sure.
ambushing.
They tunnel up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've played other systems that have had kind of that idea of like tunnelers, like coming up, mid-game, and it doesn't always work, but it's an interesting thematic mechanic that I think has a lot of potential. And like I said, without introducing a new rule, combat jump fits mechanically the idea the closest with what we have.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the only thing I don't like about it is being affected by controlled jump.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be fine. Like, I think that's a great option. But
I agree.
that's the only thing that bugs me.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. It should not be affected by controlled jump, which that could be a note. But yeah.
Yeah. Combat jump, immunity, control jump.
Yeah.
Right. Immunity control jump program.
Somebody would look at that, like somebody new at the game would look at them and be like, what the
What
heck?
is happening?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at that point, like, it wouldn't get a bonus or a negative. So nobody could affect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it definitely doesn't deserve to have a bonus to it either, because it's not doing it that way.
But yeah, I think that would be a really cool thematic way to have them do something. Other than that, like, yeah, it's I like a lot of the other ideas that were thrown out for some of that.
So I don't know, like, I know we talked about the fire team options with the availability and stuff. I don't know that we add too much like fire team options. Like, they shouldn't be able to mix too hard with other fire teams. It should remain as it is, because in their lore they're rebellious, or not necessarily rebellious, but they don't listen to standard structure, right?
They're segregated.
Yeah. So we should keep them segregated. Let Sargosh be in there, and Sargosh is probably the one that makes them regular.
I could see it.
Especially with the cost decrease, that can make him, a little more viable to bring. And I don't know that if Sargosh costs 27 points, if he's too good. I don't think he is. Even if he picks up the no one in cap. Do you think that you would have no one in cap and regen?
Well, no,
because you can't use both.
Yeah. Because it gets a little weird, because regen only works if you're in the unconscious state. No wound in cap is technically a special unconscious state, but you're not like actually unconscious.
Gotcha.
So I don't. It would be an awkward interaction.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it would work.
Is there any
Yeah, they have
examples
to be
of?
in an. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say regen +3.
No,
No, but there's no
could be.
reason not to have that. Like,
Because I mean,
that
that
is
could be your way to
perfectly.
set him apart.
Yeah, so regeneration doesn't work, or rather, oh no, wait, hold on. Nope. So no, I guess you could actually use no wound and cap and regeneration simultaneously, because it says that you can use it even when you're in a null state, which isn't relevant because no wound incapacitation cancels the null property of unconscious, and just all the activation is just decide to use it during the states phase. You make a fizz roll, and then if you pass, you gain a wound. If you fail, you lose a wound. So it would be kind of like do you want to try healing your no wound and cap character because you might kill them when they're currently working or not? So yeah, I don't think it would be
Hmm.
I don't think it would be ridiculous. And I think I don't know. I don't know if Sargosh should necessarily have both, but it would function.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would say probably if the change were like, okay, well, we'll give Jayth's regen, then sure, give Sargosh regeneration, or regeneration +3, even like you said, I think could be interesting.
Yeah.
But
I think,
otherwise, give him no win and cap, because I think both is probably a little much.
Right. You're just running around always gaining all these wounds. Unless you took away immunity from shock, then you give it a little value of shock. But that could make him exceptionally brittle.
Sure.
But
Luckily,
as much as
shock-
everybody else.
Yeah, luckily shock is not as prevalent in N4
Yeah.
as prior. Thank you,
Yeah.
marksmanship change, for not giving every robot in the game shock.
Let's see. I think that, I love the idea of he's got a big old drill on him, so keep him really good in CC. Super fun with that as much as he is already.
Yeah, I think that he should have. I think his close combat weapon should be APDA
or explosive.
100%.
One of
Maybe
the two,
explosive.
because he's got a drill arm. It should be better than the standard DA that all of them get when they don't have drill arms.
Right, I agree.
Just saying.
I agree.
And he's got
100%.
decharges, which are fine, but
yeah.
But yeah, I think APDA close combat weapon would be plenty reasonable for him. Like, that's got to chew through mineral
he put
deposits.
on
It
the
can shoot through
diamond
attack.
bits today.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he would have armor 3, pH 14. I think that, if we want to keep in style of theme or keep them the same, like it's just an elevated version of a Jayth, we should probably take like regen +3 or something. Because if you take no one in cap and just get rid of regeneration, I feel like that doesn't carry the spirit of the profile.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
Drop martial arts.
I wonder if maybe regenning on Fizz 17 might be a little much.
Yeah, I mean, you get
Could be.
I was gonna say you get doctors who are doctoring on 18, so it's not that crazy, with rerolls, but you do have to spend an order to do that. So
yeah, maybe that would be. Yeah, and maybe he's like at 30 points at that stage instead of 27, and has regen +3. I think that could be interesting.
Maybe he still drops. Maybe not. Go on.
And I think that he should probably, like I said, get the APTA close combat weapon and drop the decharges for EM grenades.
Yeah. Because the decharges are theoretically his mining equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a representation thereof. So then you just get the APDA, which makes up for that. And then he picks up EM grenades to make him in line and similar to the other Jayths. Because every single Jayth has EM, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them have EM grenades. And then the base one has EM mines in addition to EM grenades.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that those might be cool changes. I think the pit patrol is probably fine as is with a reduction.
Yeah, same. I don't think
No,
any changes.
Would you add any profiles or take away any profiles?
I definitely wouldn't take anything away. Yeah, like maybe an infiltration profile. That could be interesting. With the infiltration profile, I would give it the Azertive MIM6, and I'd like to see like them have camo, but I don't want them to have MIM6 camo if they're
No.
infiltrating. But if there's a way to designate they have to use MIM3 when they're in camo state, like one use camo MIM3 kind of thing, that could be cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would function rules wise.
Yeah.
Because camouflage doesn't care about, or it doesn't tie to any sort of mimetism. It's just it has
Exactly.
whatever the unit has.
Yeah. Without getting too fancy, I don't think there's a way, because like you give them a separate profile that like the seed embryos and stuff, but
in the
Or
modified
actually-
profile that I proposed, that's already MIM3. So there's that.
Yeah.
But also, if you are having a separate profile, you could literally just have it be like camouflage, mimetism 3. That profile is mimetism 3. I mean, it's slightly more complex than that with the overarching thing, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to put MIM6 in line on each
Yeah.
of the other profiles, and then MIM3,
Yeah, at that point,
camouflage
yeah.
MIM3 on that one. But yeah,
So, not perfect, but like some cool ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
Or
Mm-hmm.
hear me out. Hidden deployment profile, because it tunneled out that way. It was just
Actually,
it appears.
I can see that. I mean, hidden deployment infiltration, yeah, but no camo marker, no camo state.
Yeah.
I know that there is already a profile like that in Hawk, so that is already explored.
Yeah, there is
territory.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
Yeah, that might do that, and then it gives them a way to get up the field too.
Yeah, I'd say that you probably drop the forward. Again, referring to my proposed edits, you could drop the forward deployment off of them, and then just have some of them that have infiltration hidden deployment.
Yeah,
probably for approximately 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, like surprise, it's here.
Yeah,
I'd like that quite a bit, and then keep them at regular frenzy and the like. Yeah, nice. Well, I feel pretty good about those changes.
Yeah, I think that there's some fun stuff there that would make them definitely a lot more interesting to use. And, I don't want to say that the answer to everything is like, we'll make everything impetuous so that it's cheaper. Because I don't like impetuous models typically. But yeah, I think for these guys that are more of like a semi-crazed, like bloodthirsty assault unit, if there's a place for that to be, it kind of makes sense for it to be here. And again, they call out specifically how they don't fold into the chain of command very well. So yeah, I think that could be an interesting space for them to kind of fit between like more elite and more durable than Taiga by a fair margin, but not the same like powerhouse potential as a Caliban might get or a Speculo.
Yeah. I think that fits a perfectly fine slot too, because then you can totally put them into your list. I know plenty of people put like Dadarazis into the list because they're just very, very good. And I feel like these, with the proposed changes, would be similar. Sure, they don't grant you a regular order, but I feel like if they don't have smoke, so you're not going to be always spending an order on them to smoke, and I don't think that they should get smoke.
Right.
But I think that I would certainly have a place for them as a little bit more of a durable front line.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of an interesting place to compare them to, right? Because if you take the base level double chain rifle EM grenade, EM mine version, and let's say in our proposal that it's about 15 points, that's right about where Datrazi is, which the Datrazi are 14 points for the double chain rifle hand grenade version in
Yeah,
smoke. But they're regular, and they're full of impetuous instead of frenzy, but they are regular instead of irregular. They
Yeah.
also have mimetism 3. They also have martial arts, but it's level 4.
yeah.
But they don't, and they also, so they have mimetism, they have martial arts. They don't have the MSV 1.
I think like for 1 point more, that might be quite a big package, but you are losing out on regular and
Unless you're
smoke
taking them
grenades.
in Shizvasti. Yeah, you're not getting smoke, which is pretty significant.
Yeah.
Like the EM grenades are better than hand grenades in many cases. I would say most of the time. Like if I had the choice between the two on any given profile, I would take the EM grenades. But not having smoke is a really big difference because that's a lot of times why you're seeing them in
100%.
vanilla and even in Marats, because they're the Marats that don't play as nice with others and only fire team well with themselves.
Yeah.
But so I think that there's a big difference there where if you want them regular, you can get them regular at that cost, in which case they're probably a bit more efficient. But then you have to bring several of them, and you have to be playing Shizvasti Expeditionary Force. And maybe maybe Shizvasti specifically gets those infiltration profiles you were mentioning. Like maybe that's unique to them. I think that could be cool.
Yeah.
Because I like sectoral specific profiles as an option.
Yes.
So do I.
Feels nice. And
Needs to
likewise
be.
for vanilla.
Yep.
Some stuff should just be in vanilla.
Agreed.
More of that.
Yeah. So I know this was kind of a rough and tumble run at this. Like I think that we'll probably look at more of these as we go on. Like I said, I think that this would make for an interesting regular segment. But I'd be curious to hear what you at home think, and if this was of interest to you, and if this is something you'd like to see more of. If this was, actually a fun thought experiment. If some of our discussions on the unit made you want to try them as they are, even though they can't form a core team. But yeah. So I think we'll jump to our final thoughts here in just a moment. But before that, I want to give a shout out to our patrons. So you guys are responsible for helping us pay for like subscriptions, equipment replacements, and other tools and things that help us keep going. So it's just easier on us to not have to sink as much of personal budget into the show, which is awesome. So thank you very, very much
Yes, it
for
is.
taking the time and the effort to do that. And if you want to join the ranks of our patrons, and you can find us on patreon.com/metachemistry. And we have a handful of benefits there as well to say thank you. We have early access to episodes. We have votes on final voting on polls and the like. As mentioned at the top of the episode, you get a discount code to Mo Games. So, hopefully that is of interest to you, and we'd love to have you as part of the metachemistry crew there. And otherwise, even if you're not available to do something like that, we would love to have you on our Discord. So our Discord is publicly searchable as well. If not, there's also a link in the show notes. And come by and talk Infinity or chat with us or say why you think Jayth are the best unit in Shizvasti. Whatever you want to talk about. We're around for those sorts of things. You can stop by and say hi, and we'd love to have you there. But with that said, Azoka, Ian, final thoughts on Jayth Cutthroats. What do you think, Azoka?
They're in the trash right now. They're just they're just so bad. Like we did the poll, right? And there was a lot of votes on Jay's, so everybody feels the same. And I love to see patches in games that I play, and with the living rulebook and the army builder update, we can do that. So CB, if you're listening, here is an option to branch into that a little more. Also, I don't know if we mentioned, but did we talk about the fact that our patrons decided what we are going to talk about based on the poll? We gave them a vote of the top performing or the top least performing models in this poll that I put out, and they chose to go with the Jayth. So thank you, patrons.
Yeah, we really appreciate you giving us some direction, because we're here because one, we love talking about Infinity, and two, we want to make sure that what we're talking about is of interest to you. So we won't know unless you tell us. So do that. What about you, Ian?
Yeah, so I like the Jayth. I think they're great models.
Sure.
And I'm gonna maintain that my stance that every model and profile in the game has its place and its use. I'm also going to admit that the Jayth's real issue is its cost. It's not the skills. It's not anything but the cost. I think that
Totally.
in the right hands, in the right table setups and opponent matchups and things like that, I think the Jayth could be extremely useful. I think they have a lot going for them. It's just hard to build around them because they cost so much compared to what you could be getting for those points by taking other options. So I like them a lot. I think they're really cool models, and I try them out a little more here and there. Next time I play Shazvasti, I want to do that. But yeah, I mean, I'd say give them a shot and see if you can make them work. And probably much more situational. Because I do think they're really neat and have a lot of cool stuff. Just man, that price point's a little hard to swallow.
Yeah, I think that it is good to try out these kinds of units, because I think it's very easy to fall into a trap of, well, so and so said that it was bad, or I heard that it was bad on this podcast, and so we're going to ignore it. I think that kind of does a disservice, because there are circumstances where it could be useful. I personally, I don't think the Cutthroat is an amazing profile by any stretch of the imagination, but you could potentially find some niche use cases for them. Uh, and I think that experimentation is important, because otherwise, you'll never find those potential opportunities if you never take them. And so I have a list with them. I will be running it sometime in the near future. See if that changes any of my opinions for them. But yeah, I think that it also can be an interesting challenge. Like, if you have profiles that are not necessarily the most potent, or maybe are not terribly easy to use, or don't have a lot of resiliency or things like that, it can be interesting to kind of test yourself with some of these things to see if you can get that mileage out of them where normally you might not expect to. So yeah, I think that it's interesting to challenge yourself with these sorts of things. I think that some of our proposed changes could be a really cool way to change them. I know they're pretty drastic in a lot of ways, so I wouldn't expect to see any change along that level outside of a faction update for Jizvasti. But, even if it was just a matter of shaving a handful of points off, like just realizing that, the sum of these skills don't add up to this points cost, like they don't synergize enough to actually pay for the difference, and CB manages to drop them by, say, 5 points. That's pretty substantial. But yeah, so in conclusion, I suppose, thank you again for participating in the polls, telling us what you think, letting us know, what you want to hear about, and we promise to keep listening. So if you have input for us, we'd love to hear it. On behalf of Metachemistry, I've been Devin.
Azoka?
And Ian, and that's the meta.